The Silent Watchers. High above Earth's atmosphere, the Novari observation post maintained its vigilant watch, as it had for the past 3 centuries. The station's crystalline structure, invisible to human detection systems, housed some of the most sophisticated monitoring equipment in the known galaxy. Within its transparent walls, first observer Keelan stood motionless, his iridescent scales reflecting the pale blue light of the planet below. Another nuclear test, he noted, his voice carrying a mixture of resignation and concern. The holographic display before him showed the underground detonation in real time, marking the 47th such test this solar cycle. They seemed determined to perfect their methods of self-destruction. Second observer Mira shifted her attention from a different display, her elongated fingers dancing through streams of data. Yet they survive, Keelan. They adapt. Even their own radiation doesn't stop them. Her tone carried an undercurrent of fascination that made Keelan uncomfortable. The Novari had discovered Earth during their standard expansion of monitoring posts throughout this spiral arm of the galaxy. Most worlds with developing civilizations followed predictable patterns, technological advancement paired with social evolution, leading to a natural inclusion in the galactic community. But Earth defied every model. Their atmospheric carbon levels are still rising. Keelan continued, scrolling through environmental data. Their oceans are warming, species are going extinct, and yet, he gestured to another display showing a thriving metropolis. They persist. They thrive, even. Perhaps that's exactly why the Council fears them, Mira suggested, pulling up historical records. Look at their pattern. Crisis after crisis, catastrophe after catastrophe, and each time they emerge stronger. Their adaptability is unprecedented. The observation post's AI chimed in with its daily report. Human technological advancement rate continues to exceed predictions by 23%. Probability of achieving FTL capability within 50 solar cycles, 78.3%. Recommended action: maintain quarantine protocol. Keelan felt his scales ripple with unease. The quarantine protocol had been implemented the moment the Novari realized just how quickly humans could advance. A species that went from first powered flight to landing on their moon in less than 70 orbits of their star. It was unnatural. Dangerous. They're broadcasting again, Mira announced, bringing up a new data stream. Human radio signals, television broadcasts, and internet communications flowed through their filters. They're still sending messages into space, hoping someone will answer. And we ensure no one does, Keelan reminded her. The Novari deflection array had been redirecting or absorbing human transmissions for decades. The galactic community had agreed. Humanity wasn't ready. They were too unpredictable, too aggressive, too resilient. But as Keelan watched the displays, something caught his attention. A pattern in the data, subtle at present. Mira, analyze Sector 7, subfrequency delta. Do you see it? Mira's fingers flew across the controls, isolating the anomaly. Her eyes widened. That's impossible. The readings suggest, but we've never seen anything like it. The anomaly was growing, a disturbance in the very fabric of space-time. The observation post's AI blared warnings as its sensors detected what the Novari had feared since discovering Earth. Humanity was on the verge of discovering something that should have been beyond their capability. They're close to cracking quantum entanglement communication, Mira whispered, her voice filled with both awe and horror. Not just theory. They're actually doing it. Keelan, if they succeed, they'll bypass every quarantine measure we've put in place, Keelan finished. They'll reach out to the galaxy, and nothing will be able to stop them. He accessed the emergency protocols, preparing to send a priority message to the Novari Council. But before he could transmit, every display in the observation post suddenly went dark. The AI's voice came through, its usual calm tone replaced with urgency. Alert. Detecting massive quantum fluctuation from Novari home system. Communication channels compromised. Quantum network collapse imminent. Emergency protocols initiated. As the displays flickered back to life, Keelan and Mira stood frozen, watching as data streamed in from their home world. Something had gone catastrophically wrong with the Novary's own quantum communication network, the technological achievement that had built their civilization's dominance of the galaxy. And somehow, improbably, the only species that might understand enough about quantum mechanics to help them was the very one they had been working so hard to contain. "The Council was wrong," Mira said softly, watching as more emergency signals poured in from across Novari space. "We're going to need them. We're going to need humans." Keelan felt his scales darken with the gravity of their situation. The species they had feared and contained might be their only hope for survival. And soon, very soon, humanity would discover they weren't alone in the universe. Not because they reached out to the stars, but because the stars were about to come to them. "Begin preparation for first contact protocols," he ordered, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil. "And Mira, pray that humanity's infamous adaptability works in our favor this time." The observation post hummed with renewed activity as its systems began compiling everything they knew about human civilization. Soon, very soon, the quarantine would end, not with humanity breaking out, but with their watchers breaking in. The galaxy was about to discover whether human unpredictability was truly the threat they had always feared, or the salvation they desperately needed. The last resort. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before her quantum entanglement array, frowning at the readings on her holographic display. The basement laboratory at MIT hummed with the sound of cooling systems and computational processors, but something was off. The quantum signatures she was detecting didn't match any of her experimental parameters. "Hey Marcus, are you seeing this?" she called to her research partner, who was hunched over his own terminal across the lab. Marcus Rodriguez looked up from his work, pushing his glasses back up his nose. "The anomalies in the quantum field. Yeah, they're getting stronger. I thought it was instrument error at first, but..." He trailed off as another surge of data flooded their screens. "This isn't random noise," Sarah muttered, her fingers flying across the haptic interface. "These patterns, they're structured, almost like..." The lab's lights flickered, and every screen went dark for a moment before returning with a completely different display. The quantum field readings had transformed into a complex mathematical sequence that was definitely not of their making. "That's impossible," Marcus breathed, moving to stand beside Sarah. "We're receiving quantum signals from somewhere else, but the only other quantum entanglement experiments are theoretical. Nobody else has built a working array." Sarah felt her heart racing as she studied the incoming data. "Nobody on Earth, you mean?" Before Marcus could respond, the air in the center of their lab began to shimmer and distort. Both scientists stepped back as the distortion took on a crystalline form, gradually solidifying into two tall, elegant figures with iridescent scales and elongated limbs. Dr. Sarah Chen, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez. The taller figure spoke, its voice carrying an otherworldly harmonic quality. "I am First Observer Keelan of the Novari, and we require humanity's assistance." For a moment, neither scientist could speak. Years of theoretical work about extraterrestrial life, countless papers published about potential first contact scenarios, and yet nothing had prepared them for this moment. Sarah found her voice first. "You've been watching us." "Yes," the second figure, Mira, confirmed. "For longer than your current civilization has existed. We had our reasons, but now you need our help," Marcus finished, his initial shock giving way to scientific curiosity. "Whatever it is, it must be serious for you to break your own quarantine." Keelan's scales rippled with what might have been surprise. "You knew about the quarantine." "We suspected," Sarah replied, moving closer to examine their visitors. "Too many of our deep space signals disappeared without explanation. Too many astronomical anomalies that defied natural laws. We knew someone was out there, deliberately keeping us isolated. We just couldn't prove it. Until we built this," Marcus added, gesturing to their quantum array, which apparently works better than we thought. Your species' technological progression is unprecedented, Mira acknowledged. It is part of why we maintain the quarantine. But now, that same progression might be our salvation. Keelan raised his hand, and a holographic projection appeared in the air between them. It showed a vast network of interconnected points of light, with dark spots spreading through it like ink through water. This is the Novari Quantum Communication Network, he explained. It spans thousands of light years, connecting our entire civilization. But something is corrupting it, breaking down the quantum entanglement at a fundamental level. The corruption is spreading faster than we can contain it. Sarah studied the projection, her mind already racing through possibilities. A quantum cascade failure, what that would mean. The collapse of our entire civilization, Mira finished grimly. Without the network, our worlds will be isolated. Millions will die as vital supply chains and communication links fail. We have weeks, perhaps months, before the damage becomes irreversible. But why come to us? Marcus asked, though his expression suggested he already suspected the answer. Because you think differently, Keelan replied. Your species approaches problems in ways we would never consider, ways we were taught were impossible or foolish. You adapt. You improvise. You survive conditions that should destroy you. And most importantly, he gestured to their quantum array. You developed quantum entanglement technology without any guidance or previous framework. You did it your way. Which means we might see something you've missed, Sarah concluded. She turned to Marcus, seeing the same mix of excitement and apprehension in his eyes that she felt. We need to contact the government, Marcus said. Other researchers, this is bigger than us. No, Keelan's voice was firm. Your governments are not ready for our existence. The panic, the chaos it would cause, we don't have time for that. We need you, just you, to help us understand what's happening to our network. If we succeed, there will be time for proper first contact later. Sarah walked back to her terminal, already pulling up data from their own experiments. You do realize what you're asking. You want us to solve a crisis that's threatening your entire civilization, working in secret, with limited resources and time. Yes, Mira's response was simple. A smile slowly spread across Sarah's face. Well then, you definitely came to the right species. Marcus called Dr. Peddle from quantum computing. Tell her to bring coffee. A lot of coffee. As Marcus reached for his phone, Sarah turned back to their alien visitors. You've been watching us for centuries, but I don't think you really understand us yet. Humans don't just adapt to survive. We thrive on challenges like this. It's what we do best. The lab burst into activity as Sarah and Marcus began reconfiguring their equipment. They had no idea if they could actually solve the Novari's crisis, but they were going to try. Because that's what humans do. They try the impossible. And sometimes, they succeed. Keelan watched them work, his scales shifting colors with emotion. They had feared humanity's unpredictability, their relentless drive to push boundaries. Now those very qualities might be the salvation of his people. The irony was not lost on him. Breaking protocol. 3 days into what Sarah had started calling Project Impossible, she hadn't left the lab except to shower in the employee locker room. Empty coffee cups littered the workspace, and holographic displays covered nearly every wall. Dr. Patel had joined their small team, bringing her expertise in quantum computing and, more importantly, her ability to think in ways that defied conventional physics. The problem isn't in the quantum entanglement itself, Patel announced, manipulating a 3D model of the Novari network. It's in the way they're trying to maintain it. Look at these protocols. Marcus leaned in, his tired eyes widening. They're treating quantum states like classical information networks, trying to force stability. Which is exactly what you can't do with quantum mechanics. Sarah finished. She turned to Keelan and Mira, who had been observing their work with increasing fascination. Your entire civilization is built on quantum technology, But you're still thinking in classical terms. You're fighting against quantum uncertainty instead of working with it. Keelan's scales shifted to a deep blue. What they'd learned was a sign of confusion. The network has functioned this way for millennia. Our protocols ensure stability and predictability. And that's exactly the problem, Paddle said, pulling up new data streams. Look at what's happening at the failure points. The corruption isn't random. It's the network trying to behave quantum mechanically despite your controls. You're essentially fighting against the nature of reality itself. Impossible, Mira protested. Our greatest minds developed these protocols. The mathematics is perfect. Perfect classical mathematics, Marcus corrected. But quantum mechanics doesn't care about perfect. It cares about probability and uncertainty. That's why our approach worked. We embraced the chaos. Sarah reached for another coffee, her mind racing. Humans had to develop quantum technology from scratch because you kept us isolated. We didn't have thousands of years of established theory telling us what we could and couldn't do. We just tried things, failed, tried again differently. And now, Patil added with a grim smile, your network is failing because it wants to work the way quantum mechanics actually works, not the way you've been forcing it to work for millennia. The humans watched as their alien visitors processed this information. The idea that their civilization's greatest achievement was failing because it was too controlled, too perfect, seemed to challenge everything they believed. How? Keelan began, his voice uncertain. How would you fix it? We don't fix it, Sarah said, standing up and walking to the main display. We break it. Completely. Then we let it rebuild itself the way it wants to work. The entire network. Mira's scales paled. That would cause unprecedented chaos throughout our civilization. Yes, Marcus agreed. But it's either controlled chaos now or complete collapse later. You wanted human solutions. This is how we think. When something's broken, sometimes you have to break it more to fix it properly. Sarah began typing rapidly, bringing up simulation after simulation. We can develop a cascade protocol that will systematically shut down sections of your network, allowing them to naturally reestablish quantum connections without your artificial constraints. It'll be messy, unpredictable, but it'll work. How can you be sure? Keelan demanded. We can't be, Paddle said simply. That's the point. Quantum mechanics teaches us that certainty is an illusion. The universe runs on probabilities, not absolutes. Your civilization tried to impose absolute control on quantum systems, and now those systems are rebelling. The lab fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans continued working, refining their solution, while the Novari observers struggled with centuries of ingrained beliefs about order and control. Finally, Mira spoke. The Council will never approve this. They would rather let the network fail than deliberately introduce chaos into our systems. Then don't tell them, Marcus suggested, earning shocked looks from both aliens. Another human solution. Sometimes asking forgiveness is better than asking permission. You want us to act without authority. Keelan's scales rippled with discomfort. To risk everything on an uncertain solution. Welcome to being human, Sarah said with a tired smile. This is how we've survived everything our world has thrown at us. We adapt. We take risks. We try the impossible because we don't know it's impossible. Patil pulled up a new simulation. Look, we can start with a small section of your network. Prove the concept. Show that allowing quantum systems to behave naturally actually stabilizes them better than trying to control them. And if it fails? Mira asked. Then we try something else, Marcus said firmly. That's also how humans work. We don't give up just because something seems impossible. As they watched the simulation run, showing quantum connections dissolving and reforming in natural, unpredictable patterns, Keelan's scales slowly shifted to a color they hadn't seen before, a deep gold that seemed to pulse with inner light. You're not what we thought you were, he said quietly. We watched your wars, your conflicts, your destructive tendencies. We saw chaos and called it danger. But perhaps chaos is exactly what the universe needs sometimes. Sarah looked at her fellow scientists, seeing the same determination in their eyes. They had gone from theoretical research to trying to save an alien civilization in less than a week. It was crazy, impossible, and exactly the kind of challenge humans lived for. "So," she said, turning back to their alien visitors, "are you ready to do this the human way? To embrace a little chaos?" The answer would change not just the Novari civilization, but humanity's place in the galaxy forever. And somewhere in the quantum realm, particles continued their endless dance of uncertainty, waiting to see what these strange, adaptable beings would do next. The human factor. The isolated quantum relay station orbiting Jupiter's moon Europa wasn't supposed to exist. The Novari had hidden it there centuries ago as a backup node for their network, and now it would serve as the testing ground for humanity's audacious plan. Sarah, Marcus, and Dr. Patel had been transported there in secret, the first humans to ever leave Earth's orbit without building their own spacecraft. The station's crystalline architecture sparkled under Jupiter's distant light, its interior reconfigured to accommodate human biology. "Emergency protocols are in place," Marcus announced, his fingers dancing across an adapted Novari interface. "If anything goes wrong, the cascade will be contained to this sector." Sarah nodded, checking her own readings. "The quantum field is stable. Well, as stable as quantum fields ever are." "Patel, how's the new algorithm looking?" "Beautiful chaos," Patel replied with a grin, her holographic displays showing streams of quantum data. "The random seed generators are ready. Once we start this, there's no controlling how the quantum states will redistribute themselves." Keelan and Mira stood at their own stations, their scales shifting between colors of anxiety and anticipation. They had risked everything bringing humans here, defying the Council's strict quarantine protocols. If this failed, "The Council has noticed our unauthorized activities," Mira reported, her voice tense. "They're demanding explanations. We have perhaps 30 minutes before they send investigators." "Then let's not waste time," Sarah said firmly. She looked at her fellow scientists, then at their alien allies. "Everyone ready to make history, or possibly break physics?" "Preferably not the latter," Marcus muttered, but his hands were steady on the controls. Sarah took a deep breath. "Initiating quantum cascade in 3, 2, 1. She pressed the activation sequence. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the station's displays erupted with data as the carefully maintained quantum connections began to break down. "First phase successful," Patel reported, watching the cascade spread. "Quantum entanglement is dissolving exactly as predicted. Ready for phase 2. "This is where it gets interesting," Marcus said, monitoring the failing connections. "Either the quantum states naturally reorganize themselves, or we just broke a piece of the most advanced communication network in the known galaxy." Sarah finished. No pressure. The minutes ticked by intense silence as they watched the quantum field tear itself apart. Warning alerts flashed across Novari displays as centuries-old protocols failed one after another. "Council vessels detected," Mira announced suddenly. "They'll be here in 10 minutes. "Look!" Patel's excited voice cut through the tension. "The quantum field. It's restructuring." All eyes turned to the main display. Where there had been rigid, controlled quantum pathways, new connections were spontaneously forming. They were chaotic, unpredictable, but undeniably stable. "It's working," Marcus breathed, checking and rechecking the data. "The quantum states are naturally achieving what your protocols tried to force. It's like watching water find its own path downhill, instead of trying to control every drop." "The corruption signature is gone," Sarah added, her voice filled with wonder. "The new connections are immune to the cascade failure because they're not fighting against quantum uncertainty. They're working with it." Keelan's scales had turned that deep gold color again. "You did it. You actually did it. But the Council." The station shuddered as several Novari vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel nearby. Their communication system immediately lit up with urgent demands. First observer Keelan, a stern voice filled the station. You have breached multiple protocols. Human presence in a Novari facility is strictly forbidden. Power down all systems and prepare for. No, Keelan interrupted, his voice firm. Council members, you need to see this. The humans have done what we thought impossible. They've found a way to save our network, our entire civilization, by breaking every rule we have. The council member's voice was sharp. By introducing chaos into our systems. Yes, Mira stepped forward, because sometimes the rules themselves are the problem. Look at the data we're sending you. Look at what happens when we stop trying to control quantum mechanics and start working with its true nature. There was a long pause as the council received their transmission. Sarah exchanged glances with her fellow scientists, all of them acutely aware that they were witnessing a pivotal moment in not one but two civilizations' histories. Finally, the council member spoke again, their tone markedly different. These readings. This is unprecedented. The corruption is completely gone from this sector. How? We thought like humans, Keelan said simply. We embraced uncertainty instead of fighting it. And in doing so, we may have discovered something even more important than saving our network. Oh, the council member's voice carried a note of curiosity now. Yes, Keelan continued. We discovered that everything we feared about humanity, their unpredictability, their willingness to defy conventions, their ability to thrive in chaos, these aren't weaknesses to be contained. They're strengths we desperately need. Sarah stepped forward, addressing the council directly. Your civilization achieved amazing things by imposing order on the universe. But the universe isn't ordered. It's quantum. It's chaotic and uncertain and beautiful because of that, not in spite of it. Humans understand this because we had to. We had to adapt, to embrace uncertainty, to find ways to thrive in chaos. And now, Marcus added, we can help you do the same. Not by changing who you are, but by showing you a different way of seeing the universe. The silence that followed was heavy with possibility. Finally, the council member spoke again. First observer Keelan, remain at your post. Maintain the quantum field modifications. We will discuss the implications of this development. And as for our human guests, Sarah held her breath. Perhaps it is time we reconsidered our policy of quarantine. The galaxy may need humanity's unique perspective more than we realized. As the transmission ended, the humans and Novari looked at each other, all of them aware that this was just the beginning. The quantum network would need to be rebuilt, two vastly different civilizations would need to learn to work together, and countless challenges lay ahead. But that was fine. After all, impossible challenges were what humans did best. A new understanding. 1 year after the quantum network crisis, Sarah Chen stood at a podium in the newly constructed Human Novari Exchange Center in Geneva, addressing a mixed audience of humans and aliens. The crystalline architecture of the building blended seamlessly with traditional human design, a physical representation of the unprecedented cooperation between the two species. When we first met our Novari friends, Sarah began, gesturing to where Keelan and Mira sat among the dignitaries. They thought they were asking for help with a technical problem. What they actually discovered was something far more profound, a new way of seeing the universe itself. Holographic displays behind her showed the transformed quantum network, now a vibrant, ever-shifting web of connections that spanned the galaxy. What had once been rigid and controlled was now alive with natural quantum fluctuations, stronger for its apparent chaos. The quantum network crisis taught both our species valuable lessons, she continued. The Novari learned that perfect control isn't always the answer, and we humans, we learned that our greatest perceived weaknesses, our chaos, our adaptability, our stubborn refusal to accept limitations, might actually be our greatest gifts to the galaxy. Marcus and Dr. Patel sat in the front row, both now leading their own teams in the Joint Research Initiative. The past year had seen an explosion of technological advancement as human intuition combined with novari precision. Already, they were exploring applications that neither species would have conceived of alone. But perhaps the most important lesson, Sarah said, her voice carrying through the hall, was one that challenged both our preconceptions. The novari feared humanity's unpredictability, while we humans often doubted our place among the stars. Both of us were wrong. She gestured to a new display showing various joint projects, terraforming initiatives that used quantum mechanics in ways the novari had never considered, medical breakthroughs that combined human biological adaptability with novari technology, and exploration vessels that married human courage with novari precision. The galaxy isn't divided into order and chaos, into right ways and wrong ways, Sarah explained. It's quantum, a superposition of possibilities. The novari mastered the technology of quantum mechanics while we humans, in our own way, mastered its philosophy. We learned to thrive in uncertainty because we had to. Now, together, we're learning that this combination might be exactly what the universe needs. In the audience, Keelan's scales shimmered with that now familiar gold color. What humans had learned was the novari expression of profound understanding. Beside him, Mira was taking notes, still fascinated by how humans could find new perspectives on seemingly settled matters. The Council's decision to end the quarantine wasn't just about preventing the collapse of the quantum network, Sarah continued. It was an acknowledgement that isolation and control aren't the answer to the galaxy's challenges. The universe is vast, complex, and fundamentally uncertain. Maybe that's why it needs species like humans, beings who look at impossible problems and say, let's try anyway. She paused, looking out at the diverse audience. Some of you may have heard that the Council is now discussing opening contact with other isolated species, using the lessons learned from humanity's integration. Our chaotic, adaptive approach to problem-solving is being recognized not as a danger to galactic civilization, but as a catalyst for its evolution. The holographic display shifted to show the edge of known space, where joint human-novari expeditions were pushing the boundaries of exploration. We're stepping into an uncertain future, Sarah acknowledged. But uncertainty, that's where humans feel most at home. And now, with the novari's help, we're ready to share that gift with the galaxy. As applause filled the hall, Sarah caught Keelan's eye. He nodded, his scales rippling with colors that humans were only beginning to understand. They had come so far from that first secret meeting in an MIT basement, yet in many ways, their journey was just beginning. Later, at the reception, Marcus found Sarah standing by a window, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. "Hard to believe it's only been a year," he said, handing her a glass of champagne. "Remember when our biggest worry was getting our quantum entanglement experiment to work?" Sarah laughed. "Now we're helping reshape galactic civilization. Just another day at the office, right?" The Novari Council approved our proposal for the Deep Space Quantum Relay Network, Patel announced, joining them. "They're actually excited about the uncertainties in the project. That's definitely new." "They're learning," Mira said, approaching with Keelan. "Just as we all are. The Council has a saying now. When in doubt, ask what humans would do." "That's either flattering or terrifying," Marcus quipped. "Both," Keelan responded, his scales flickering with amusement. Another new color humans had catalyzed in novari expression, just like humanity itself. Sarah raised her glass, looking out at the darkening sky where stars were beginning to appear. Somewhere out there, other civilizations were waiting to be discovered, other challenges waiting to be faced. And now, thanks to an impossible crisis and an unlikely partnership, humanity was ready to take its place among them. "To chaos and order," she proposed. "To uncertainty and adaptation," Keelan added. "To the quantum nature of everything." They all finished together, their voices joining in a moment of harmony that bridged the vast distances between their worlds. As night fell over Geneva, the Human Novari Exchange Center glowed with its own inner light, a beacon of possibility in a universe that was finally learning to embrace both order and chaos, certainty and doubt, the known and the unknown. It was a universe that needed humanity's unique perspective more than anyone had realized, even humanity itself. The story of human unpredictability saving an alien civilization would be told and retold across the galaxy. But more importantly, it would serve as a reminder that sometimes the very things we fear most in others might be exactly what we need most ourselves. In the quantum dance of the universe, there was room for every kind of movement, every kind of thought, every kind of being. And humanity, with its beautiful chaos and relentless adaptability, had finally found its dance partners among the stars.